DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
From the Israel Sports Radio studios, it's Lewis Live. There's your host, me, Ari Lewis. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well on this Monday in our beautiful capital, Jerusalem, Israel. It's Lewis Live coming at you at 5 p.m. local time. Great show for you, as always. There's a big guest coming up for you. And so we're going to get things started right now. There's a lot of sports to talk about. As always, the NHL Finals, Game 6, and Jersey making a comeback. It looked like the Kings were on the verge of dominance and a sweep, and Marty Brodeur is making his claim for the Conn Smythe. We'll get into the NBA Finals, which will be starting tomorrow. Game 1 between the Miami Heat and the Oklahoma City Thunder, as yours truly predicted the Finals would be at the beginning of the NBA season. A lot of great baseball talk, but probably the biggest news in sports, especially if you're a boxing fan, the stunning loss of Manny Pacquiao to Timothy Bradley. And we're going to get that boxing talk started by dialing up our first guest. He is a fan favorite here at the program. Comes on a lot. He is the director of Split Decision. The film was originally called Hero Trader Madness, but the title has changed. And we'll be getting in touch with Bryn Jonathan Butler shortly, talk about the Pacquiao loss. Hi, Bryn. Are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm there. How are you?
Hey, doing great. It's a pleasure to have on now the director of Split Decision, Bryn Jonathan Butler. And let's just get right into it. Stunning loss. Manny Pacquiao loses to Timothy Bradley. Very close decision. Of course, as a split decision, 115-113, pretty much all the way around. A 2 for Bradley and 1 for Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao landed about 70 more punches. And it's weird because you figure if there's a fix, it would be for Manny Pacquiao's advantage to set up with the big fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Give us your thoughts on the fight. Did you think Timothy Bradley really won?
I had it for 10-2
for
Pacquiao.
You had a 10-2 for Pacquiao.
I had 10-2 for Pacquiao. Dan Raphael had an 11-1 for Pacquiao.
Wow, that's a problem.
What did you have it?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I did not watch the fight. I always wait for it when it comes back on YouTube. But by the way, it was a shame because the fight, of course, by all accounts, was a great fight, and I kind of wish I would have watched it in hindsight. So, I mean, you like conspiracies. Was there a fix, and why would there be a fix to have Pacquiao lose?
Well, I think there's a few reasons. Bradley was not a marketable commodity. Now he is. Now, if Bradley has to be matched against Mayweather, you've got 2 undefeated fighters. So that's smart. And who was Pacquiao's next opponent going to be if it wasn't Mayweather? So now he's got a big fight, a basic guarantee for Pacquiao to win because he did dominate the fight. So I think for Aaron, this worked out very well. Okay,
so because there could be a potential rematch, which would be worth a lot more money because if Pacquiao, like you said, is not going to fight Mayweather, who would he fight? Now he has a big fight against Bradley. But in the long run, let's say he fights Bradley and dominates him, they give Pacquiao the decision. Is the Floyd Mayweather fight still then on the table, and if so, at the same stakes?
No, I don't think it is any longer. I think he's trying to gear up Bradley as his next fighter because now you think if Bradley wanted to fight Mayweather, he could say, well, I've got to win over Pacquiao. You ducked him, and we're both undefeated. So it's clever, you know?
Wow. By the way, Bob Arum, I know he represents Pacquiao. He represents Bradley, too. He promotes him also?
He only lets his big fighters fight his own fighters. That's where the conspiracy comes in. It's probably the main reason that Mayweather has never happened.
Wow. All right, so this... Go ahead.
Everybody around the fight who's close to it says Arum is the real culprit for it not happening.
Now, will there be an investigation on the scoring? I mean, we've seen some weird decisions in the past. The one that always comes to mind is De La Hoya Mosley 2. Most people said De La Hoya won that fight, and you would think having De La Hoya win would be better because it sets up fight number 3. I always thought that was a weird one. De La Hoya demanded an investigation. A few other times there's been a potential investigation or a demand for one. Will there be an investigation on this particular fight?
Well, look who's leading up the investigation. It's Bob Arum when the number one suspect is Bob Arum.
Right. That's true. Yeah, it doesn't look too good.
I'm sure he'll get to the bottom of that one. And it's in our best interest as fight fans because he's always looking out for us.
It's like OJ kept looking for the real killers on the golf courses in Miami Beach.
That's one golf course at a time. He's trying to find justice.
Right. Okay, so this is a bit of a problem, but I guess boxing as usual. Boxing is a corrupt sport. I mean, I don't understand how this could happen where so many people think he's guilty. I mean, it's not like he's in charge if there's an investigation or not. Can't they file one anyway?
Well, so who's appointing these judges? Who appoints the referee? That's all on the promoter. I think there's so much spillover from promoters to the governing bodies. You had Floyd Patterson running New York boxing organization. He couldn't remember his name. You know, there's so many figureheads who are not functioning at what their job is supposed to be. I just think Arum runs all of it. I mean, he's where all the money goes. You know, for all the advertising, HBO, whatever. I think the buck stops with him at every stop.
Now, is that part of the reason, of course, we've been waiting for Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather for a long time now. It may never happen. But is that part of the reason you think Floyd was reluctant? Because Floyd, of course, worked with Bob Arum, obviously, and maybe he thought he might get a raw deal somehow on the scoring and or the referee.
Absolutely. I was at the fight with Lara versus Paul Williams. I mean, Paul Williams, the stuff with him being a paraplegic for the rest of his life, it's tragic, but that was the worst decision I'd ever seen. I think it was worse than the Pacquiao-Bradley decision, but there's been a series of really awful decisions lately. Brandon Rios versus the Cuban fighter Abril. That was supposed to be another one that was 10-2, and it went the other way. So it's becoming a bit of a pattern here.
All right, so I'm a little bit stunned by all this news because I've certainly seen some bad decisions. The one that also, in addition to De La Hoya Mosley, Lennox Lewis Holyfield one was obviously pretty bad, but Don came there. But let's stick with Bob Arum. Now, let me actually throw this on Manny Pacquiao. If Pacquiao knows all of this, I guess he didn't think that his own promoter would set him up to lose, but should he have gone for the knockout? He dominated the fight, maybe not let it go to the judges, and a knockout screws up Bob Arum's plans anyway, so does Pacquiao deserve any of the blame for all of this?
Pacquiao's fight plan, and I mean, I watched this at Leon Gashouse, who's just making a documentary on Pacquiao right now. He's been doing it for 3 years. He scored it 6-6, so we had a disparity there, but everybody else who was with us was pretty much 10-2, 9-3 sort of thing. I don't know. What Pacquiao did was every round he would wait until the last minute to steal it. And as you mentioned with the punch numbers, he landed more punches, he landed at a higher percentage, and he landed the better punches. So, you know, by those metrics, he dominated the fight. Bradley never had control of it. For the entire fight. He didn't control 30 seconds of it. But Pacquiao didn't have the energy that he's shown in the past. He was really saving himself and kind of rationing those big flurries and saving it for the end of the round. But during the first 2 minutes of each round where Bradley could have asserted himself, he never did. So I really don't understand how anybody could score that fight for Bradley. I don't know in what area you would have to be scoring in order to see that he won that fight. I mean, I'd be interested for you to check it out, Ari, and see what you think.
Yeah, I'll have to score it myself also. Now, let's go to this angle of it as well. Even if Pacquiao gets the decision, it seemed like he faded in his previous fight. As you mentioned, also with this fight, kind of he's stealing the rounds, but not going all the way through. So had he fought Floyd Mayweather Jr., it looks like that he would have lost anyways. What would you say to that?
I think it was a pretty dominating performance by Pacquiao, because you look at Bradley's 28-0, pretty, in his prime, and Pacquiao dominated him. So
Okay.
I think him versus Mayweather right now is it's a real tough one to call, because Mayweather, I think, has slipped a bit. He showed that against Cotto, but it makes it so interesting. It's a shame, because you could have seen them 3 years ago when they were still at their top, prime speed, power, stamina, energy, and then seen them now, where I think they've both slowed down enough that it's going to make for a much more interesting fight now than it would have been potentially back then. Might have been a much more technical fight that Mayweather could have dominated. Now I don't think he's fast enough to dominate. The years have caught up to him, all that training. And Pacquiao also can't quite rely on that ruthless energy he's had throughout his career. He is pacing himself a little bit now. So I think it makes it more interesting than ever, and I would have no idea who I would favor in the fight. I think Mayweather's technical ability, I would always side with that, but it's close. Pacquiao just has the punching power, the tenacity. It's still there. It's just not in such abundance. So I think it's a more interesting fight than ever, and this was a ridiculous decision. Nobody who saw that fight would view Pacquiao any less, and definitely people will disregard Bradley as anything other than a marketing ploy by Arum to stay relevant with a champion in that division.
Now, the talk at this point, is it rematch? Is that what we're looking at, Bradley and Pacquiao Part 2?
Yeah, that's the fight he's got to push. He's got a piece of both fighters, so it's in his best interest to do it. It's zero risk. As I mentioned, Bradley was in the best shape of his life. He was just a phenomenal specimen going into this. And Pacquiao's got some stuff going on. He delayed going out to the ring by about an hour or an hour and a half because he was watching the end of the Celtics Heat game. That kind of hubris is just, I think people are seeing it a little more. He was always the hero, the congressman, taking down the big names, always happy or whatever. There's another side to him that people are starting to see. I don't know if you read about the comments he made that were taken out of context, but still about gay marriage, where, I think the article said that he wanted them to be stoned to death as per the instructions of Leviticus. But you're seeing another side to him, this sort of religious fanaticism that kind of points to what his life was before, the womanizing, the drinking, the carousing, a mob of yes men. Something's going on with him, and at 33, I don't think you can afford to have that many distractions around you.
Also, of course, the tax evasion, and I remember you mentioned last time you were on the program that he was heard looking up in the air saying, "God, why have you left me?" as well. Yeah, exactly. Here's a guy who's actually believing that he's having a one-on-one chat with God, and he's not sort of taken aback by that. He's in a pretty pressurized, extreme environment that I don't think anybody can. He might be one of the most famous faces on the planet, and he thinks it's all by virtue of this God's plan that he's on, and yet, I don't know, I just think a lot of things are falling apart. He is not acting in good faith with the tenets of his religion. He's cheating on his wife repeatedly, and we saw this with Tyson towards the end, where Tyson was sort of all about Allah, 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 and yet everything was falling apart around them. It's just a front that they're trying to keep for themselves, and it seems like it makes it even harder to sustain the discipline that got them there. Yeah, of course, you've done some boxing in your day, and I remember we spoke off air about basically how can anybody drink and train? You have to be in such physical peak shape to train. How could Manny Pacquiao drink? We talked this with Kelly Pavlik and him being an alcoholic. How is that possible to drink and to train for boxing?
I think it just goes to show how stressful it is. All the fighters that I've known, the actual fighting is the least stressful part of what they do. It's just this awful build-up, months and months and months, and being in front of those cameras, and most boxers are quite private people. It's as solitary a pursuit as you can imagine. And as far as the business end of it, I don't think you're going to find a rawer form of the isolating powers of capitalism than a pro boxer in the United States. God, these guys are in it alone, and everybody around them, they don't know who they can trust. And I think, if it wasn't alcohol, where do they get a reprieve from all the pressure and the stress? I think that's what it's about. It's not just that they're careless or stupid, but maybe there is some hubris in there in terms of they think, I can drink and do it anyway. I don't know. It's very self-destructive, but I mean, it's after they leave the sport, they all gain, it seems, 20, 30 pounds. Very few of them are able to stay in shape or mentally keep it together. I mean, I think Pacquiao is going to leave the sport probably with some serious damage, to his brain as a result of all these wars he's been in. What's that going to look like for his family? I mean, it's a tough sport to care about for everybody involved, I think, but especially for the fighter. Nobody comes out worse than the fighter in that sport. Yeah,
absolutely. It is certainly a sport that kind of eats you up, but a lot of the fighters go into it because they have no other choice, come from impoverished backgrounds or for whatever reason, and that's what they do. Let's move on to your guy, Guillermo. Fifth round knockout, was on the undercard of this big fight. Where is his mental status at? How's he handling everything? Of course, the moving from Cuba and everything he's had to deal with. Where's his mental status right now?
Well, it's interesting, because I'm just completing the editing now. So, I mean, I might throw in this last fight, but I don't think so. But I notice every reviewer or rather journalist who covers his story, the first thing they want to ask him about is Cuba, is his home. And he keeps asserting over and over and over again, I don't want to talk about this. I'm here now. I don't want to talk about this. So I think it's very much on his mind. And, it's odd because the more successful he is in showing just his ability as a professional, I mean, all the criticisms that he's a boring fighter. He's 10-0. He's knocked out 8 of his opponents, and he just took on somebody with a very respectful record and knocked them down 5 times in 5 rounds. And, I mean, if you listen to the announcers, Kellerman and Lampley and Larry Merchant, they're all just saying, like, who would ever want to fight a guy like this? You're not going to sell any tickets, and he's going to beat you.
Right.
So that's a tough pill to swallow when you're pushing 32 at the end of September. So I wonder what it looks like for him to really see that the better he performs, kind of the worse his career projections look like. I think there's a lot of friction there.
So maybe the advice should be to maybe not be so dominant, to invite people to come in. It reminds me of that line for Raging Bull when Pesci says to De Niro, either way you win. If you lose, you win. You win, you win. Because if you lose, right, then people will want to fight you. So I don't know what Guillermo's going to do. It seems like he's stuck with his dominance at this point.
I really don't know. I mean, at this point, he wants to unify the belts. I don't think Arum would let any of his champions go near him. Because right now he's fighting as good as I've ever seen him, and he's fighting to knock guys' heads off. I mean, he was just showing, all he threw was power shots, and watch it on YouTube. It's up there right now, this fight, because boy, he has a professional style now, and he just wants to take your head off or knock you to the body with that left to the body that he's been throwing, and I don't think anybody could stand up to it. His hand speed is so fast, and the accuracy and precision of his punches. I mean, it's like watching Floyd Mayweather in his prime, but a Mayweather who can punch, and who wants to punch, who wants to take you out. and that's not the Guillermo that's been there up until the last 2 fights, and he just looks like an assassin up there. I was amazed at his progress, amazed. So it's just a question of, can he get fights, and can he get good fights? And if I was a promoter, I wouldn't let any of my guys near him. So I don't see why they would. They're business people. So why would a Donaire ever take a chance on him?
Now, what was Guillermo's payday for this fight?
He grossed, I believe it's $103,000.
Okay.
So probably come away from it with, 60, 55?
So that's what he lives on, for until his next fight, pretty much, right?
Theoretically, I'm sure that he's subsidized by his handlers to some degree. I don't really know how else he'd be able to, lease a Mercedes that's $130,000. I mean, it doesn't sound like the most sound financial budget to me. But no, he's not getting endorsements. I think there's some talks about him getting them, but no, it's not big money. It's really not big money. It's not Pacquiao money, and he's almost the same age as Pacquiao. So that's another thing to consider as he moves along, is what's he going to do after the sport?
Right. Absolutely. What is his next plan at this point? Is there a particular fighter? Like you said, so many fighters are dodging him. Does he know who he wants to fight next and when?
He's been calling out Donaire. He wants all the big names, and
okay.
I mean, it'll be interesting because this, as I say, this was a masterful performance, and it'll probably be the big fight that people come away with from that card. And that card had a lot of attention. I mean, it did probably pretty well on pay-per-view and everything. He was the first pay-per-view fight that was on there. Maybe he's got a shot at fighting a little more frequently, if anything, but it's just the age. That's the only thing that's going to catch up to him. So I'm sure he just wants to fight as much as possible and make as much money as possible. But he certainly he will fight anybody. He is as consummate a winner. When you talk to him, it's like the Michael Jordan interviews where he's just pathological about winning. So he's never really lost at all in his career. So he's full of confidence.
All right.
In the ring.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure outside the ring, still got to adapt to new culture, new language, and all that kind of stuff. Let's now talk about the film. Nice story on ESPN about it. What is the status of the film at this point? When do you think it'll be finished so all the people, or us fans in Israel, can go and watch it?
Well, I just had a kind of a side thing that could be interesting and a little easier to grasp for your average sports fan. I met with ESPN about doing a short. The 30 for 30 series is doing a bunch of shorts, and one that I pitched to them that they're intrigued by is Teofilo Stevenson versus Muhammad Ali, the great fight that never was. So I might do that as a little side project because I got a lot of footage in the film with Guillermo, kind of looking at the fighters who turned down all this money, and the Stevenson interview was probably the biggest one I was able to get. So it might be a nice way to sort of introduce the subject matter of the film to an American audience and an international audience, and also line my pockets a little bit to finish the editing here in New York. So that's kind of the plan right now. Is got about 40% left to go on the rough cut, and then my hope is to pursue an ESPN or an HBO. And I had a good talk with them a couple of weeks ago, and they said that Cuba and the boxers they're interesting commodities for them. They're interested in sort of throwing some light on that subject matter, especially with the Olympics coming up. So it's going pretty well. I wish it was going a little faster, but it's coming.
Yeah, and not bad, because when was it? It seems like it was a year ago that you went to Guillermo and said, how confident are you of knocking this guy out? And you bet the last money you had on him because you were robbed, basically. That was a year ago, wasn't that?
Yeah, that was late March of 2011.
Wow, so certainly we're in a different place right now, and thank God for that. So, of course, Guillermo bailed you out, and then you're able to keep going with the film, and who knows what happens here? It could go to HBO. Also, I'm sure some film festivals as well. Sundance, are you interested in submitting your film to Sundance?
Yeah, I just like to get it out there to people, who are interested in the subject matter. I mean, that's all I'm trying to do with it is to reach people who are interested and want to learn a little bit more about boxing and the culture over there. There's just because everybody in this country, they're forbidden from going over to visit, but there's still a lot of curiosity, and it's a very different thing to see it up close than it is to read about it. And I think that's interesting because it makes you think about why is it different from what I'm reading about it? Is there some kind of agenda at work in terms of how I'm supposed to see it? Because it's the basic conflict of meeting people there and seeing how they respond to Americans from what you're told. There's no hostility towards Americans over there, and yet with these fighters coming over, you get that kind of culture shock of seeing American culture for the first time in a way that we can't because we live here, and I just think those themes are interesting and important right now, as this country's in a pretty big place of change. So Cuba's and Cuba is as well, of course. I mean, who knows what's going to happen next after the Castros die? They're already, early 80s, mid 80s, so lots of changes.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds, again, I can't wait to see this film. It's going to be great stuff. We're out of time for this segment. It was a lot of fun, obviously, as always. Wish we had more time. Let's do it again real soon. It was great talking. I love the conspiracy talk. Let's talk more off the air about it. And Bob Aaron, baby, we got to love him. Represent. And we'll talk later on. It's been a pleasure to have the director of Split Decision, Bryn Jonathan Butler. Bryn, thank you for being on Lewis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Always a pleasure, Ari. Love to be back.
All right, be well, Bryn. We'll do it.
Take care.
All right, that was Bryn Jonathan Butler. Fun as always. I tell you, folks, I've had Bryn on before for an hour, and we still had a lot to talk about. So kind of a shame that this was a shorter segment of only 23 minutes, but it is what it is. We're going to take a break. Very exciting guests on the other side from ESPN, Mark Brown. We're going to talk the NBA Finals mostly, maybe a little NFL, but the NBA Finals, the promised land of NBA, starts tomorrow night. I'll be right after this commercial break. You're listening to Lewis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. I want to remind everyone to check out our store by clicking on the store tab. And we have great stuff there. T-shirts, hats, food, candlesticks, and much more. This is Lewis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Lewis Live, our thanks again to Bryn Jonathan Butler, the director of Split Decision, the story of Guillermo Rigondo, who fought on Manny Pacquiao's undercard in that shocking loss to Timothy Bradley. Conspiracies galore, or at least conspiracy theories galore, with that particular decision. I'm joined now in studio by Aaron Krolik. Aaron, welcome to the studio here.
Thanks for having me back again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to wish Raphael get well soon. I know he was not feeling well today, and so I'm in here, and I'm looking forward to being with you, Ari.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a great guest coming up, but just to touch upon what Bryn said, it is always a shame to see these fighters go broke. It does happen pretty often. I don't know what the exact percentages are, but a lot of times these boxers don't have any type of business background, business education, or they're not surrounded by the best people or people who have their best interest.
Yeah.
And these things happen. Joe Louis is probably the most famous example. Heavyweight champion of the world, has the longest strain of heavyweight, reign as a heavyweight, excuse me. And you see him at the end of his life in Las Vegas as a greeter because he needs the money. And, American hero. He supported the troops in World War II, went around and did a lot of shows to lift the morale of the troops, and didn't end so good for his life. And had some mental injuries. Of course, that happens to boxers very often because of all those shots to the brain, and a lot of them fight too long.
Do you think there's like a parallel between boxers and football players? For instance, we say shots to the head. We know that there's the big concussion issue in sports in the NFL. And then we see that, with Warren Sapp filing for bankruptcy. Trying to think what other player was in the news recently. Just the number of suicides. Junior Seau. Yeah, it just seems that boxing and football are kind of like parallel in terms of what happens after, a person reaches a certain pinnacle in their career.
I know John McCain sponsored, I think, the Muhammad Ali act or legislation about telling boxers to give it up when it's time to give it up. They may do something like that in the NFL as well, because you really find out the damage these players have in later on, in their 40s, in their 50s, 10, 20 years after they played. It's a hard concept because in America it's very much about do what you want to do what feels right, it's your life. But it's a shame to see all these athletes end their lives this way just simply for entertainment. I don't know what the line is. I hope someone smarter than me that can figure that out. Let's save this discussion for right now and dial up our next guest. He is ESPN commentator Mark Brown. And the NBA Finals, if you like the teams or don't like the teams, this is the teams we have. I'm actually very excited about this particular NBA Finals, partly because I predicted it at the beginning of the season. I didn't really go out on a limb. A lot of people had OKC and Miami, but not everyone predicted it and called it out on the air like I did.
Do we have that clip?
I can dig that up, maybe.
We'll dig that up.
We'll have to dig that up sometime. It's going to be a really fun NBA Finals. Hi, am I speaking with Mark?
Yes, this is Mark.
Hi, Mark. It's Ari Lewis. You're live on Lewis Live on Israel Sports Radio. It's a pleasure to have ESPN commentator Mark Braun here on the program. How you doing out there?
Fantastic. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great, and let's get right into it. Let's get to the NBA Finals tomorrow night. Actually, sorry, let me back up. Let's go to the conference finals because there are still some stories that need to be finished, and we'll start with the Spurs. They go 2 months basically without losing, and then in a span of about a week, a little more, lose 4 games. Charles Barkley is saying Tim Duncan should retire. The Spurs just had a phenomenal season, and then for it to end like that, what's going to happen with this cast? You know, we know Tony Parker's more the leader of the team now. What do you see happening, managing Tim Duncan and the crew from San Antonio?
Well, it's always interesting. I love listening to what he has to say. It's often unconventional, but often right on the money. I'll tell you the truth. Look, Tim Duncan should do whatever he wants to do, but you can continue to play basketball. Yes, in shorter minutes, he has most of these last years, but I think there's still more out of Tim Duncan. If he wants to keep playing, he can. First question about that. I've loved all these. I think what they do and how they've done it and how they've stayed near or at the top for the entire Tim Duncan era has been just absolutely phenomenal. I don't look for Duncan to retire. I look for them to try to continue to find some little, see if they can pull another championship out. The season was fantastic. Bottom line, so much young talent, so much athletic ability, and confidence. It's just easing out of their pores as they step up and make the big plays. So I think we're going to go and seize the moment.
You know, it's interesting because the Spurs were the number 1 seed last year, number 1 seed this time around, and I think they have some gas left in the tank. I think Tony Parker will have a better season than he did this year, and he had a great season. I know Duncan might go down a little bit, but when you have Greg Popovich there, you're still going to have a chance to win an NBA title. So I don't think Duncan should retire. He should give it a go. And I just think they had a bad week. I mean, I'm not willing to say they're better than the Oklahoma City Thunder, but I think they're better than losing 4 games in a row. And I think if they give it another go, they're going to have a great chance to get another number 1 seed. Let's move to the Eastern Conference losers now, the Boston Celtics. They might be a little bit more on shaky ground. The big three have been cold old for a while. They almost traded Ray Allen for O.J. Mayo. It's hard to see this team staying together all the way through next season. Maybe they start together, someone gets traded at the deadline. What do you think is going to happen with the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, I think that's a team that really does need to make some moves. Look, 5 years ago when it all went down, they got Garnett right after getting Ray Allen. They instantly became an NBA Finals, NBA titles caliber team. They paid it off with the title, another trip to the final. I looked at that as a good free window where they had to win as much as they could. This year was year 5 of that 3-year window. So you kind of do the math there, and you can see it. Look, Kevin Garnett performed heroically throughout a lot of it. There's a lot of miles on those NBA legs. Clearly, Ray Allen's not going to be back next year. I think it's a fact. Rondo is obviously a star point guard. Pierce is, the legend and the glue that has held them together for all these years. I can't say what exactly is going to happen with them, but they're a team that needs to now make those hard decisions. It's going to be hard on the fans, too, because they've gotten used to these guys. They love them. They've been phenomenal players, but big changes have to happen there. I think that more so there than they have to happen in San Antonio, for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it seemed like, I think if you're a Boston fan, I mean, they're not going to look at it this way because it's Boston and people like to be miserable there, but I would take it as the positive and say this team really should have ended in 2010. It looked like Doc Rivers was going to retire. There were a lot of different talks about Paul Pierce not coming back, and they had an extra 2 years to try to get something done. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. I think that was certainly overachieving. I didn't think they were the second best team in the Eastern Conference. They got lucky that Derrick Rose had an injury. So if you look at the arrow that way, I would say pretty positive. You have 1 title, 2 appearances in the NBA Finals, 3 Eastern Conference Finals. They're not going to look that way because it's Boston, but they're going to have to accept that Rondo will have to find a new group and they'll have to rebuild. Okay, let's now get to the NBA Finals. And a good friend of mine brought up a great point. This is LeBron James versus Kevin Durant, the two best players in the NBA. People could argue Howard, Kobe Bryant, Derrick Rose. In my opinion, these are the two best players. You believe it or not, you don't always see that in the NBA Finals. We've seen it with Jordan Malone, Jordan Drexler, well, Jordan and a lot of people. But many times, the two best players, for some reason, aren't in the NBA Finals because they're in the same conference, or at the Lakers, they're on the same team. How excited should we get that this is Durant, LeBron James? We wanted to see this for a few years. Now we're going to see this in the NBA Finals.
I think there's a big reason to be excited about it. Yes, those are excellent points that you're making. Durant has been he's been on the come now for a few years. Obviously, he's an incredible scorer of the basketball, and his range is unlimited. But his confidence, and he's got that gene. It's built into his DNA that he wants the ball and he delivers down the stretch. I think the thing that's going to make this maybe even better than some of those matchups that you're talking about, it has the added aspect of we're going to see those guys guarding each other for significant parts of that game. Now, it's possible that Durant won't always guard LeBron, but I'm looking at the Heat lineup and thinking, you know what, LeBron has got to guard Durant a lot.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic is going to be really, really good because we just don't have two, known stars, top two players kind of in the league, teams facing off. We got to see these guys go head-to-head and see if they can stop each other. So to me, I'm looking at that and saying, man, I'm licking my chops. This is going to be really exciting.
Okay, now, a lot has been made about LeBron not performing in the clutch. I heard an interesting stat that if you go to the final minute in the last, scoring-wise, the last 8 years, I believe LeBron James is number one. Now, if you go to the last 10 seconds, he's not exactly there. I'm in the opinion LeBron doesn't have to be the fourth quarter guy. I think Dwayne Wade could do it. LeBron could play 3.5 or 3/4 quarters, have Wade finish the game. I don't know if that's going to be a successful formula, but it may be just enough to hold off OKC. What do you think? Does LeBron have to come through in that final shot or the final 10 seconds, or could Dwayne Wade finish this off for the Heat?
Well, I'm with you on this a little bit in that we do make an incredible amount of controversy over who gets the last shot and whose team is it. And if you're a superstar like LeBron, it's got to be you. You got to take the last shot. I don't think we need to boil it down that tightly. I think basically what we need to see from LeBron is he needs to win an NBA championship, however that happens. He needs to play well through those NBA finals and make clutch plays at the times when those clutch plays can happen. It may be with a minute and a half left that he makes a steal and completes a three-point play, taking it to the hole, and that's the moment that he seizes the game. Those are all things that, as a basketball fan, as a guy who covers basketball, and who I would look at and say, okay, these are clutch, important plays. As long as he's making them, playing aggressive, not appearing to defer and to play scared. And let's face it, he had a great run last year in the playoffs to get to the finals. He was not the same player in the finals. There was a confidence problem. He looked like he was shrinking. Those are the things that he has to overcome in order to win an NBA title, and that will cement the legacy.
I get the feeling, and I could be wrong with this, last year, definitely people were rooting against LeBron James and the Heat. I don't even know if they were rooting so much for the Mavericks, but they wanted LeBron to lose, villain number one, because of the quote decision and how he treated the Cavs, all that stuff. I'm starting to get the feeling that some people are going on LeBron bandwagon because it's like, hey, this guy has lost over and over and over. He's lost twice in the NBA Finals. He lost early in his career with the Cavs just to not even make the playoffs. And this is his time. This is his year. 3-time is a charm, as the saying goes. I think the fans want him to win. I could be wrong about that. What is your opinion of the fans in general about wanting LeBron James to win his first NBA title?
Okay, I think there's a change. I think you're correct. There's been a change between last year when they held the NBA victory party, or they've even had a practice. Of course, that and the decision, the way it was pulled down, LeBron lost a lot of fans, and there were people actively pulling against him. There are still a pretty significant, but I think a lot of people have moderated their opinions about that. Part of it might have to do that the Heat operated maybe a little bit more taking care of business, a little more under the radar. LeBron in particular, he seems to be more about the business than contributing to all the hype. So I think it's definitely changed. It's definitely got the hatred is less widespread and it's less virulent. But I still think there's plenty of people that want to see the Heat lose here, and they want to see LeBron fail. I'm not one of them, and I never was. I don't have any problem with him going to Miami. If he felt he couldn't win in Cleveland, and he didn't have to go to New York and try to build them. If he's trying to win a championship, he should go where he thinks he's got the best chance to win it. And I have no problem with what he did. I have a problem, like a lot of people, with how he went about it and all the hype and the victory party before they even had a practice.
The victory party before the practice definitely had a problem with. The decision in itself, people tend to forget that I believe $3 billion was donated to the Boys and Girls Charities. Plus, we get on our athletes time and time again for not wanting to win, and here he did. Here he put himself in a position to win an NBA title. So I'm not a LeBron hater. I think there's guys in the NBA that do bad things in public and should be disliked or rooted against. I don't think LeBron is one of them. I think he's pretty much been a class act all the way through, and where he is on that level means a lot. Before we switch gears to the NFL, let's make some predictions. I like the Heat in 6 games. Like I said, I think LeBron finally gets it through on his 3rd try. What is your prediction, and in how many games?
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance this series for anybody is ended in less than 6, and it could go 7. I've been wrestling with this. I knew you guys would be calling and talking about this. And before I got on the phone, I did not have a pick yet, but I know you're putting me on the spot. I got to do it.
Right.
I'm going to say it is the Heat, but that it's going to take 7. Now, of course, remember this is home court advantage Thunder.
Right.
So if they're going to do this, they're going to win it in 6. They're going to win it in 7. They're going to win it on the road. So maybe there's less pressure on them that they can go out and do that. So I'm going to say Heat. I'm going to say LeBron does come through, and this is the moment where people stop having all the questions about, can LeBron get it done in the clutch?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to turn him into not exactly Michael Jordan, but maybe a little below, because MJ, people forget, because they like to do revisionist history, did not win his first title until he was 28 years old. Again, lost time and time again to the Pistons, and finally was able to get over the hump, and then he was the greatest thing since sliced bread after all that. All right, I'm going to turn over to my co-host to discuss a little football with you. Aaron, go ahead, take it away.
Hey, how are you, Mark? Aaron Krolik.
Good, Aaron. How you doing?
We're going to go from the NBA. Are you counting down the days to the NFL season?
Well, we have a saying over here at ESPN that it's always NFL season. It's year-round. And certainly a lot of our coverage here in the United States, anyway, reflects that. I'm not quite in NFL mode yet, so hopefully I can help you out with this discussion. What's going on?
Let's talk. I'm going to give you. I have three over-unders written in front of me, and I want you to tell me. We're going to play a little over-under game. Ready? Okay. Tom Brady in 2012 will throw 44 touchdowns. Over or under?
Under.
Okay, I think it's over. We'll get to that.
Interesting. I like this question. Okay.
I'm going to give you another over-under. Ready? Ryan Matthews, the San Diego Chargers' third-year running back, will have over or under 16 touchdowns total.
I'm going to go under on that as well.
I'm going to go over. All right, let me give you one more, and then we'll get to it. Robert Griffin III will rush for over 700 yards in his NFL rookie season.
Over.
I think it's over, too.
All right, got agreement.
I want to just here's the thing about Brady, and this is what I'm racking my head over, is that they now have McDaniels back. The man is back, McDaniels. And he brought with him Brandon Lloyd. And we know that McDaniels and Lloyd had this, love affair in Denver, which then extended to St. Louis when McDaniels went there last year and then Lloyd was traded. So you're adding now to the New England, wide receivers. You have Brandon Lloyd, you have Welker, you have Gronkowski, you have Aaron Hernandez. Then they sign Jabbar Gaffney, they sign Dante Stallworth, and they still have Deion Branch. I just named 7 wide receivers. We know just by the mathematics of it all, I think Brady could break his own record of 50 touchdowns. I think just each of those guys that I named, Brandon Lloyd is a touchdown hog. I mean, Welker gets 10, 12, maybe more. Gronkowski last year was, unstoppable. Thoughts on that?
Look, can I change my vote? No, I'm kidding. It's obviously. I mean, 42 is a phenomenal number of touchdown passes for any quarterback.
I think we threw it at like 44.
For 44 is that? What
I think we threw it at a little higher.
But even 42, so a little worse than 44. Yeah.
But obviously Tom Brady's standards are completely different than others. He's capable of putting up those kind of numbers. You mentioned all those names, and some of them, big and accomplished names. But Brady is the great thing about Brady is that he's thrown the way he distributes the ball to so many different people, and how many non-Pro Bowl type wide receivers that he's thrown all his touchdown passes to. So, I am a huge Tom Brady fan. I think he has an incredible, that it's not that he makes what they're doing. He makes these other receivers. There's no question. His best receivers are his tight ends at the moment, I think, and they are touchdown machines.
Yeah.
I just think that to be able to do that, to be able to have a season where you predict he throws over 44 touchdown passes, I'm just being a little more conservative on that. I think he's perfectly capable. I mean, he's done it.
Yeah, sure.
And I know they've got plenty of guys, and they've added to that, and they are a passing offense. So I can't argue with anything you said.
No, I know.
There's no
I'm so fired up
that he's got those weapons.
I think.
Now, are you a Patriots fan?
Believe it or not, I'm from Chicago, living in Jerusalem now, and I'm a Bears fan. And I couldn't be happier. Gosh, the signings of the Bears, we could go down the list with every position that they've covered. From running back now, they went out and signed Michael Bush, who's a stud. They signed Brandon Marshall. They go get a draft pick in the second round, a beast from South Carolina, Jeffrey. They go out and they get Eric Weems, the kick returner, one of the most underrated performers in the NFL, to go along with Devin Hester on special teams. Not to mention now we have Jason Campbell serving as backup, and the defense is healthier, and it's probably this defense's last year. They always say that with Urlacher and Briggs. Oh, they're getting older, and I hear it every year. And the Bears still come through on defense. I think quietly, don't tell anybody there at ESPN, I think the Bears might win the Super Bowl.
Whoa.
And I'm making that prediction right here on Israel Sports Radio today.
Well, here's a prediction I have.
Yes.
No Bears quarterback ever will throw for 44 touchdowns in the history of the NFL. It will never happen.
That's pretty safe to say.
Let's just go quickly, though. I want to talk about Ryan Matthews and the AFC. I love talking AFC West because, it's now with Peyton Manning on Denver, and you have Phillip Rivers, and they have just there's some interesting characters out there in the AFC West. But on San Diego, they get rid of the LT years are way gone, the Sproles years are gone, and he was a guy that used to get 6-7 receptions a game. The Mike Tolbert years are gone because now he's in Carolina with Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, which is just three huge running backs. That's a running game down there in Carolina that they've assembled. But now that just leaves Ryan Matthews on his own. I can't tell you. Maybe Jacob Hester is his backup, but I think that Ryan Matthews has a lot of upside this season. If he stays healthy, and that's the key with obviously all these players. But the amount of, I'm thinking in fantasy terms, we call them dump-offs. And Phillip Rivers loves to dump off the ball. And I'm just thinking that Ryan Matthews on third down is going to see a lot of that. And he could really have a break. He had a good season last year. Much better than his rookie season. But this could be a season where he gets, potentially like a LaShawn McCoy numbers last year, which would be, fantastic for fantasy owners. Ari, help me out here. I want to ask Mark a question. Mark, where'd you go to college?
I went to a small school called Bates College. It's up in Maine. And as a matter of fact, I was just up for a significant class reunion. I don't think I need to mention which one it was, but it was, it's one of the big ones. You don't have to know exactly how old I am. But, I was back there for the first time in many years, and it was funny. You had all the big class dinner, and you're all getting back in touch with each other, and everybody, all my friends were like, okay, look, we got to find a big screen, and we got to watch Game 7, Celtics and Heat.
Absolutely.
So that, dominated tonight, which is, that'll tell you a little bit about, how me and my friends look at things. It's, hey, great, our 25th reunion, but it's all about the game.
Well, that's some good friends right there.
Yeah, and so when you were a young college student, what could you see yourself? I mean, what did you see yourself as being when you grew up? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, when I grew up, I wanted to be playing in that game, and I was watching. Obviously, by the time I was in college, that was clear that wasn't going to happen. I did play small college basketball at Bates. It's Division III, so the lower of the three divisions. But even at school, I think the only thing I really wanted to do was go into broadcasting and be a play-by-play man. Now, it took me a while to kind of get off my butt and start moving down that road. Not until my mid-20s, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the one thing outside of actually participating in the sport or maybe becoming a coach from the high school or college level. The only thing I ever wanted to do was be a broadcaster. So, I've had, a reasonable amount of success at it. I make a living doing what I love, and it's been absolutely perfect for me. It's what I was born to do.
Mark, it's interesting because in college I kind of had some dreams of being an athlete, but I was explained that as a short Jewish kid, I was more likely to own a team than play for one. So just have to deal with reality sometimes.
Have you bought a team yet?
Not yet, but I got some time. We'll see what happens. Maybe I move way up the scales and one down the road. You never know. Anything's possible. All right, Mark, we certainly appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. We would love to do it again in the future. We know you're busy, but whenever you have time, we would love to do it again.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoyed it.
Have a good
Mark.
Day.
Be well. Enjoy.
Shalom.
Okay. Bye.
All right, that was Mark Brown from ESPN, and pretty funny to hear his story. They played Division III basketball, but eventually went to the broadcasting side, and certainly has made a good living and a good choice out of it.
His resume is amazing. His play-by-play experience consists of more than 300 NBA games, including 8 NBA Finals and 9 All-Star games. He's broadcasted over 40 NFL games, including Super Bowls 32 and 35. He's done EuroLeague basketball Final Fours for the last 5 years. He's done all 4 tennis Grand Slams from 2009 to 2011, and he also provides reports for international editions of SportsCenter for basketball, tennis, and cycling. So, wow. It's a good guest.
Big guest we had on, and
we are big time at Israel Sports Radio.
Nothing short here of the biggest guest for you fine folks to listen to and enjoy. And get some more knowledge and entertainment on the sports you love. We're going to take a break. On the other side, this is a kind of duo type of guest. He is a radio broadcast coordinator at Georgia State University, but really what we're going to spend most of our time talking about is a book he's written about Jews in baseball. Now, our good friend Andy Gershman has written a book, he's in the process of creating a book and having it out there called Modern Day Maccabees, which discusses Jews in all types of sports. Dave has focused just on baseball, so we're going to get into that, plug his book, and talk about that stuff. It's going to be a lot of great fun. Want to encourage everyone to check out our store by clicking the store tab on the Israel Sports Radio homepage, and we'll take a break. It's Lewis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Lewis Live, and it was a lot of fun with our two previous guests, actually, Bryn Jonathan Butler from Split Decision, Director of Split Decision, and Mark Brown from ESPN. We're going to get right to it and dial up Dave Cohen. And as I mentioned, Dave Cohen is an author of about a book about Jewish players of the game of baseball. And always interesting because I feel that of the four major sports, that seems to be the one that Jews dominate more than any other. I wouldn't say dominate's not such a good word. It's not like there's 50%, but it seems to be more Jews in baseball than other sports. So we'll try to find out why that is. If David Cohen can give us a particular answer, I have my own theories, I suppose.
We hope they're practicing Jews too.
That's right.
Right.
Am I speaking with Dave Cohen?
Yes, you are. How you doing today?
Doing great. This is Ari Lewis. You're live on Lewis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Pleasure to have you on the program. How you doing out there?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everything with you guys today?
It's going great. It's going great. It's a lot of fun to have you on it. Let's get right into it. Now, you wrote a book about Jews in baseball, and I was just bringing this up with our audience, that it seems there are more Jews in baseball than in football, basketball, hockey, what have you. I kind of have my own personal theories on that. What are your particular theories of why that is?
Of why there's more than we think?
Yeah, well, or even in general, that you could probably name. I mean, you obviously can because you're an expert on it. But the average fan probably can name maybe 5 or 6 Jews off the top of the head in baseball. Couldn't really do it in, let's say, football so much. So, why do you think that is? That there are more Jews in baseball than other sports?
Well, because, for the longest time, and you guys know this as well, living over there where you guys live, that,
we kind of had that moniker that Jewish kids don't play in the dirt.
Right.
They're more educational oriented. Maybe more into doing things that don't involve athletics. And that's kind of how, we all kind of had the reputation of, not being a very athletic group of people. But, I think that, we've had plenty of great athletes over the years, even going back to the, the late teens, early 20s, and the 30s with, some great boxers, some great basketball players back in the day that, really is a stereotype that, to a certain extent doesn't really carry the truth to it. There's some truth to it, but there's also some non-truth to it as well. And I think what you're seeing now, and I see this even, here in the States with my kids playing baseball, that there's a lot more Jewish kids out there involved in athletics than maybe we've seen in past years.
Yeah, I think that's well said. That has certainly been the stereotype. We don't like to play in the dirt, but I think more that perception is starting to go away. At least I certainly hope so. And, of course, the book you wrote, Matzo Balls and Baseballs, great title. I want to get actually to the title. How did that come about? How did you decide to come up with that title?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the book yet, but I think a lot of folks are walking around with a book in their head, and it's one thing to have it in your head, and it's a thought. It's another thing to actually begin a process and see the process through to the end, because in many instances it takes years of commitment to do it. And all the more power to those folks that do follow through and do it. But what happened was there's a couple of former Jewish baseball players, major leaguers, that live here in the Atlanta area, and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, here in the United States. And one of them was a friend of mine, a guy by the name of Ron Bloomberg, who played for the New York Yankees, was the first pick in the 1967 Major League Amateur Draft by the New York Yankees, and he and I have been friendly over the years, and so we've had conversations, and then I ended up going to a book signing here in the Atlanta area for a guy who wrote a book called Cup of Coffee, which was interviews with former Major League Baseball players that only played a very short time in the major leagues, and it just so happened that one of the guys that was in that book was another guy here in the Atlanta area by the name of Larry Yellen. That's Yellen. He had played for the Houston Colt 45s and then the Astros going back to 1964, 1965. And so I had a chance to meet him at that book signing, and it was one of those things that, after talking to him for a while, it was kind of like, well, I know Ron. Ron's a friend of mine, and certainly, Jewish sports fans, Jewish baseball fans have had the pleasure, I'm sure, to read about the Sandy Koufaxes and the Hank Greenbergs, really the two best-known Jewish former ball players, and the only two players, Jewish ball players, that are in the Hall of Fame and up in Cooperstown, New York. And so it just kind of piqued my interest. Who was Larry? Why did I not know anything about him? And it really, a light bulb went off and said, well, who are some other Jewish ball players that I don't know about, and why don't I know about them? And so I ended up interviewing Ron, and then I interviewed Larry, and then it really just started me on the path of tracking down as many of these former players as I could, and really just to get their story. I had some that were kind of a little apprehensive along the way because they thought maybe I was trying to approach it from a negative standpoint. What sort of negative instances did you have? What kind of anti-Semitism did you face in your career and stuff like that? And that really wasn't the point of doing it. Although certainly I asked some of those questions, but the point was really just to find out who some of these players were. Tell me about your career. Tell me about, some of the great times that you had as a young kid playing Major League Baseball back in the day. And, just tell me about your career, some of your instances and some of the great things, maybe some of the great players that you played against or alongside, when you were in the major leagues. And that was really about it. It was really, a journey to just tell the story of these guys, who they are, and a little bit about their careers in Major League Ball.
What was the story that really got you, that you when you found out information about a particular player, you just couldn't believe it and you just had to put it in the book right away? I'm sure there's a lot of great stories, but what's the one that really stands out for you?
Well, I don't know that, and I don't mean to say this about my own book, that there was nothing that was earth-shattering, but there were a lot of cool stories of, people that these players met along the way. For example, are you guys familiar with Ty Cobb?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, the Georgia Peach. He's from Royston, Georgia, which is about an hour and 45 minutes north of Atlanta. And in my interview with Barry Latman, who pitched back in the late 50s and 60s, notably with Cleveland, he was with Houston as well. Latman was a young Jewish kid growing up in Los Angeles, and ends up coming out of high school and playing Major League Baseball. He was obviously a really good pitcher coming out of high school. You had a lot more kids in those days who would go from high school, to Major League Ball. It wasn't so much, from high school to college to Major League Baseball. Many of them would go directly from one to the other. Anyway, through a friend of his father's, and the reputation of Ty Cobb back in the day was that he was a product of his time, his time period, especially here in the Deep South, which was, there was a lot of racial situations, and it was something that went on every day. And, Cobb also, again, probably was not a fan, of a lot of different people that were not unlike himself. But as it turned out, Barry Latman, through a friend of his father's, Cobb was living in Northern California at that time, or had a couple of different residences, but I think he was involved in one of the ball clubs up in Northern California in the PCL, the Pacific Coast League. Anyway, they meet and they become friendly, and they had dinner a number of times. They exchanged letters. Back in the day there was no email, and telephones weren't quite the same as they are today. So a lot more letter writing was done in the day, and so there are all these letters between Ty Cobb and Barry Latman, and it kind of shows a different side of Ty Cobb that maybe history has not portrayed in many of the books that have been written about him over the years. Because here's Ty Cobb, befriending a young Jewish ball player, back at that time period, and really doing anything that he can, whether in person or on the phone or through a letter, to kind of assist him, in his career. One of the other great stories that I really enjoyed, because some of these guys, especially the older guys, played in the time period that many Americans may not necessarily identify with. And when I say Americans, I mean American ball players. And that is, Al Rosen is probably one of the best. You might have to put him in the top 5, the top 10 all-time, Jewish ball players, for his time period. But he's playing minor league baseball. He's about 18, 19 years old, playing minor league baseball up in North Carolina, and World War II breaks out. And he had a little bit of naval background, I guess, in high school, ROTC sort of naval background, and so he enlists in the Navy rather than wait to get drafted. And so he goes from playing baseball as an older teenager in North Carolina, to the United States Navy, and he had a lot of really cool stories about places that he visited, being on the ship that he was on. He told me that his ship was one of the first to land at Okinawa, out of the Pacific, in the war with Japan. He put his baseball career on hold for 5 or 6 years, in order to serve in the U.S. military, as did many Americans, obviously, and many American ball players back in the day. But there are things that, a lot of modern day ball players don't identify with, because, things are different nowadays. But, to hear his story and what he went through, as a young man back in the day, was really admirable. And so there's stories like that, throughout the book. I mean, Brushes with Greatness. Another guy that I interviewed was Don Possig, who lives down in Florida now. But, he was a guy, I had no idea really who he was. But during his time with the San Francisco Giants, he platooned as an outfielder and was the backup center fielder to Willie Mays, who's easily one of the greatest ball players in the history of Major League Baseball. So there are stories like that, throughout. And, good trivia question. One of the guys that I interviewed who I think really got it and understood why it's important to recognize who a lot of these, Jewish former Major League Baseball players are, is a guy by the name of Steve Stone.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people remember Steve Stone as the color commentator on Chicago's WGN on the Chicago Cub broadcast. But,
right.
Steve had a pretty good career. But he's the answer to a trivia question, and you guys may know this. Who are the only 2 Jewish ball players, Jewish pitchers, to have won the Major League Baseball Cy Young Award?
I know Steve Stone has won one, and Sandy Koufax is the other, so those are the 2.
Exactly. They're the only 2, and Stone won it in, I think it was 1980, He was 25-7 and had the best year of his career. But he told some really good stories, even going back deep into some family history. And again, probably out of all the guys that I interviewed, from a historical standpoint, Steve Stone understood why it was important that we recognize who these ball players are and find out about their careers and pass along the information, to generations down the line.
Now, you mentioned World War II, and I want to go to the era a little before that. Hank Grieber, of course, probably the second greatest Jewish ball player next to Sandy Koufax, and his best season, 58 home runs. There was some talk the pitchers did not pitch to him the final week of the season because they didn't want a Jew breaking Babe Ruth's single-season home run record. You're certainly an expert on all this. What are your thoughts about those rumors?
I've heard the same things and read the same things, and again, go back to the time period. It's hard for us to identify because we don't, you and I are not living, in that time period and dealing with what it was that they faced. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that happened, and if that was the situation, that Greenberg faced back in the day. But again, it's something that we read about, and it's in a history book, and we may see it in a video, but it's you and I didn't live it. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if if there was a lot of truth to that.
And that would certainly be a shame because he had the chance, he had the opportunity. It comes up short. Who knows if he would have done it, but it would have been nice to know what would have happened. It would have been nice to see him get that opportunity. Now, Dave, I want to go into the criteria of how you decided which Jewish ball players would get in. Meaning, did you decide if only their mother was Jewish, or if their father was Jewish, not their mother, they would be allowed in? Also, we spoke with someone from the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, and they pretty much would allow a lot of people in, but if they were, let's say, Jew for Jesus, something to that effect, they would not allow them in the Hall of Fame. So what was your particular criteria for your book?
Well, starting out, I kind of had a list of who it was, that I wanted to try to track down, and it really has not been difficult to this point. There were a few guys that I even talked to or in an attempt to track down, really didn't identify, as themselves being a Jewish ball player. So I really didn't approve them, but I did include them. But everybody that I've got on here would pretty much qualify, and I went by the list. Are you familiar? Have you guys ever talked to the gentleman in Boston who puts out the Jewish baseball cards?
I have gotten some of those cards. I haven't spoken to him yet.
Okay, if you go to his website, he has what we'll term the list. And I'm not going to say it's the official list, but right. I used it as my official list of all current and former Jewish Major League Baseball players. So if they were on that list, then it was good enough for me to include them in my book. And I published at 17, and since I've published, I have interviewed 4 more, including Marv Rothblatt, Art Shamsky, who was a member of the '69 Miracle Mets, Ed Mayer, who played for the Chicago Cubs back in '57 and '58, and most recently I was able to interview in person Sean Green, who many would consider throughout the late '80s, '90s as the best of the Jewish ball players. But I've got some guys on there. I actually have 2 that have converted. One of them by the name of Elliot Maddox, who's an African-American gentleman who played played for a number of different teams, but was friends with Ron Blumberg on those New York Yankee teams of the mid-'70s, and that's how I was able to get in touch with him. And his story was pretty interesting. And then a gentleman by the name of Jim Gaudet, Gaudet, who grew up Catholic but converted to Judaism in the mid to late '70s, and is a very practicing Jew as we speak, living in South Georgia. So obviously, if you're going to convert, you have a concerted interest, in being a practicing Jewish person, of which both Maddox and Gaudet are. Whereas some of these other guys, yes, they are, but they may not necessarily be, deep practicing Jewish guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tough angle or a tough line to try to figure out, because if someone wants to identify themselves as a Jewish person but if they're not practicing or they don't have any Jewish parents, it's it's somewhat difficult. It's always kind of a tough decision to try to figure out. Now, another question regarding some of the Jewish legends of the past. Again, we'll always talk about Sandy Koufax when it comes to Jewish ball players. He seemed to kind of go into the quiet, if you will, after his retirement. Retired very, very young, early 30s, had some more years left, but didn't want to do any damage to his arm, and also wanted us to see him in his prime, the 3 Cy Youngs in 4 years and an MVP. Truly remarkable. Of course, he only gave the Cy Young to one, a total for Major League Baseball, not like one each league like there is right now. Why do you think Sandy Koufax has kind of stayed away from the limelight, out of the public eye, when we see many athletes get a broadcasting job or a manager job or something, they still stay in Major League Baseball?
Well, Koufax did do some television for a few years after his retirement, from Major League Baseball. He didn't disappear completely, but again, never having met him, and obviously never having met a guy like Joe DiMaggio, but having read a lot about him, DiMaggio, every time he went out on the field, felt that, he had to give his absolute best performance because, as he said, someone may be at that game who is seeing me for the first time.
Right.
And as they say, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. A lot of people don't subscribe to that way of living or playing if they're in professional athletics, and certainly hats off to a guy like Joe DiMaggio, who's certainly one of the greatest players in the history of the game, as was Koufax. But you kind of got the from the video that I've seen, the interviews that I've read, the books that I've read on him, and I've got 3 or 4, Koufax was kind of along the same way. I mean, he did not seem to be of the type personality who was going to hang on and play Major League Baseball, even if he was not 100%. Could he have continued to play and sign contracts and play as an injured player? Sure. But again, like DiMaggio, that's not really his nature. And he was very much, I believe, if they're going to see me, they're going to see me at 100%, or I'm not going to participate and just kind of hang on to a major league career simply to be a major leaguer and, to collect a paycheck. But, he's always had the reputation of being, underground per se, not necessarily out there, not necessarily seeking fame and notoriety for anything. He just wanted to, I guess, retire, and live a sense of normal life that you could, being who he is. But I do like the story, in getting back to the documentary that came out about a year and a half ago on Jews in baseball, is that when that was being produced, and I talked to the director of it at one time while I was still working on my book to see if there was any way we could be involved, one project to another. But I remember him telling me, and of course it was later on in the film as well, that I believe it was Ira Berkow, who's a pretty well-known New York writer. When Jews in Baseball was being produced, they reached out to Koufax through Berkow, and I think Ira Berkow was able to convey to him that they're doing this project. It's on the history of Jewish ball players and Jews in baseball. And from the way I'm paraphrasing here, but it came back to me that Koufax kind of agreed with Ira Berkow that if they're putting this documentary together, and this is going to be one of the foremost documentaries on the history of Jewish ball players, that I need to be included in it. And so, he ended up, I believe, 2 different times sitting and doing an interview with the producers of that Jews in Baseball film. And I'm sure, like you and a lot of other baseball fans, I'm certainly glad he did, and he was able to tell his story. And again, hats off to him, and all the more power to him, to live his life the way he wants to live it, as opposed to how other people think he should be living it.
Right. Well said. I mean, at the end of the day, it's his decision and his free choice of how he wants to live his life. And, of course, speak with Dave Cohen. Not only is Dave an author of Matzo Balls and Baseballs, but has broadcasted for Georgia State University Athletics for a very, very long time. We only have a few minutes with you, Dave, but first, kind of a basic question. The school left the Atlantic Sun Conference in 2005, and I'm always curious, whenever a team jumps conferences now in the Colonial, what was the reason for Georgia State leaving Atlantic Sun to join the Colonial Conference?
Well, back in the day, the Atlantic Sun, it's still a good conference today, but it was made up of different schools, a lot more public schools, larger universities. A number of those schools, like the University of Central Florida, ended up leaving at the time for Conference USA. Some other schools like Florida Atlantic, which is down in Boca Raton, Florida, Florida International down in Miami, Florida, they left and joined the Sun Belt Conference. So a number of schools broke away. And then we were kind of left in the Atlantic Sun as we're a large public urban university in downtown Atlanta of over 32,000 students. And then you had a number of other small private schools. So, it just really didn't fit us being in that league at that time. And, the president and, the administration at Georgia State wanted to align the university with other larger public urban universities. And at the time, the Colonial was a good fit for us because we had schools in Boston, in Philadelphia, 5 schools in Virginia, in Delaware, North Carolina. It was really up and down the East Coast of the United States. So it was a good fit for us at the time. Schools like George Mason, just outside of Washington, D.C., Virginia Commonwealth in Richmond, Virginia. So we were in a league now with other more like schools. Then Georgia State added college football, playing its first season 2 years ago. We're going to play our first and only season in the Colonial Athletic Association for football this year, and then the program is moving to the highest level in college football, which is what we call Division I or FBS, Football Bowl Subdivision. So we needed to find a league that, number one, wanted us, and number two, was a good fit for us. And so now, after 7 years, we're going to leave the Colonial Athletic Association and move to the Sun Belt Conference, which is an FBS, a Division I football conference. And from a travel standpoint, it'll be a little easier as well, because we think of things only in terms of football, but you have to remember that men's and women's basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball, softball, they all have to travel as well. So being in the Sun Belt with some schools that are a little bit closer geographically will make things a lot easier for everybody, but at the same time, decisions nowadays are made in terms of college football, and again, taking the program to the highest level means going to another league, and so the Sun Belt, in turn has been the best fit for us. And interestingly enough, if you go back to 1975 through 1981, Georgia State was a charter and original member of the Sun Belt Conference. So we've really come full circle with football, going back to the Sun Belt Conference, where we started out back in the mid and late 70s.
All right, last question before we let you go. Now, you have been around Lefty Driesell, and I just want to know what that was like. Such a legendary coach, was with Georgia State from 1997 to 2003. Just tell us what that's like. One of the winningest college coaches of all time. He won 100 games at 4 different schools. So tell us what it was like to be around Lefty.
Well, it was great because when Lefty came in, and Lefty is 80 now and lives in Virginia Beach, and luckily I still get a chance to talk to him on a semi-regular basis. He has 2 daughters that still live here in the Atlanta area, so he comes to town periodically as well. But when he came into Georgia State, our program from a men's basketball standpoint was down, and he came in and had 5 straight winning seasons. He won 16 his first year, 17 in years 2 and 3. And then really broke out in 2000, 2001, when we went 29-5, went to the NCAA tournament, upset a Wisconsin team that the year before had been in the Final Four, and then we ended up losing to his old Maryland team in the second round of the second game of that 2001 NCAA tournament. But then his 5th year, we ended up losing a very close game to Florida Atlantic in the Atlantic Sun Conference tournament. And we ended up in the NIT. We ended up losing to Tennessee Tech in that ball game. And about 10 games into the following year, he was not feeling that well and decided that, that was the time for him to turn it over. But in all honesty, other than this past year with Ron Hunter, our new head coach, who went 22-12 this year, the 5 years with Lefty were really the 5 best years, that Georgia State has seen in college basketball. And, to bring someone of his name and stature at the time that we did was just huge. I mean, I still say he was the greatest hire, in the history of Georgia State athletics. And, so much so that we put his name on the floor in our basketball arena. It's Charles Lefty Driesell Court. And, I'm one of those, having been around here a while, that hopes that we never lose our connection with him because, he just brought so much to Georgia State, forced Georgia State basketball to grow beyond boundaries that it had ever thought of growing at the time. And again, we're talking now, 15 years ago or thereabouts. And, so again, I'm glad that I'm still able to talk to him, and we're still able to reminisce about, the 5 great seasons that he had here. And, again, the best coach that Georgia State has had, and, he left his mark here, and those of us that were here to witness it are all the more happy to have been around him and the program as he took it to a level that it had never reached.
Okay, it looks like we lost Dave there. Let's dial up real quick just so we could say goodbye to him. That was just such a great interview, so I don't want to think we hung up on him or anything like that. Get him back on. By the way, I want to take this time to remind everyone to check out our store by clicking on the store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Great items, T-shirts, hats, and more. Hi, Dave. Looks like we lost you there. Can you hear us?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay, great. Actually, that is all the time we have for this particular interview, but it was a lot of fun, and we would love to do it again with you in the future when you have time.
Sure, anytime. There's a lot going on here, and I'm always happy to talk to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Dave. We really appreciate the time. Be well out there.
All righty.
All right. That was Dave Cohen, author of Matzo Balls and Baseballs. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, another gentleman from ESPN, from the ESPN D.C. area, 980, Scott Jackson. This is Lewis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
Talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.IsraelGym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
All right, back here on Lewis Live, and our thanks again to Dave Cohn, author of Matzo Balls and Baseballs. We're now going to dial up from ESPN Scott Jackson. He is out in the D.C. area, so we'll get into some Redskins, Nationals talk, maybe a little Wizards as well, and maybe preview a bit of the NBA Finals. So good show so far. We appreciate everyone tuning in. And once again, check out our store by clicking on the store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com. And we're going to go a little past 7 p.m. to about 7:15, and then to conclude the show for the evening. Hi, am I speaking with Scott? Hi, this is Ari Lewis with Lewis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How you doing out there?
Good, man.
It's a pleasure to have on now Scott Jackson, who is the talk show host at ESPN 980 out in the D.C. area, and I'm going to pass you over to my co-host for today, Aaron Krolik, to talk some Washington Redskins football. Go ahead, Aaron.
Scott, hi, how are you?
Good.
And in Hebrew we say Ma Shlomcha. And you're supposed to say Mitsuyan. Mitsuyan, Ken. Yes. You know, everyone, sometimes we forget, Ari and I, that we are broadcasting from Jerusalem, Israel. And it's cool to be able to talk to somebody in the United States and somebody who's so well connected with the Washington, D.C. area. Can you tell us, give the listeners, and we always like talking NFL football here. We're going to go right in. What are some of the breaking news? What's happening with the Washington Redskins?
Well, I mean, it's just it's a big honeymoon right now with the since the draft they traded to get up to that second spot and take Robert Griffin III, the Heisman Trophy winner for Baylor, and people are just insanely excited about the regular season, and expectations as usual in Washington are probably overly optimistic, but that's kind of the way we are here. But it's exciting because finally it looks like they have a franchise quarterback in place, and that's obviously something we've been lacking forever. I mean, really. I mean, since Sonny Jurgensen, who was a Hall of Famer, and Joe Bison was probably the last really stable long-term quarterback answer they had, even though others won Super Bowls like Doug Williams and Mark Rippon, but none of those guys were the long-term solution to the position. So I think that's why people are excited. This kid got a lot of upside, and now he's going to go out and do it. I mean, I've seen all the highlights of him in college, saw, fantastic career, not only a great athlete, but he's a real smart guy, and he's got an amazing charisma. It just seems like every position you put him in and every question he answers is the right answer, so people are obviously really encouraged to see him on the football field for real.
Right, and the Redskins also addressed some concerns they had this offseason at the wide receiver spot. I know they went out and they signed Pierre Garçon. Who else did what other big names, if any, did the Redskins pick up this offseason?
Well, I don't know the big names. That's the one thing that's kind of been a breath of fresh air since Mike Shanahan came here and Brissell and in the front office. They don't go after names per se anymore, just for the sake of going after names.
Right.
They are the guys that are trying to make fit into the systems that they play. And I think obviously the Garçon thing was the biggest move, followed by Josh Morgan, who comes from the 49ers as a DC native. Those two guys should help the wide receiver position. They still have Moss here. There's a lot of hope that Leonard Hankerson can come back from that hip injury he had last year in the off-season surgery.
Anthony Armstrong.
Player at the position as well. So, I mean, that's what you're looking at right now in terms of the big name guys. Like I said, there's not a ton of them, but those guys are expected to fit in really well.
It seems like Dan Snyder and the Redskins, their spending spree kind of ended with Albert Hainsworth. It seems like that they've kind of learned their lesson from signing big names, perhaps, and losing on those types of deals.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. There's they put more emphasis, obviously, in the draft over the last several years. Last season they had what appeared to be a really it'll be almost like a rookie year for him to help shore up that defense. But the defense front seven is pretty solid. It's still a back four that concerns people. There's a lot of numbers at safety. A quarterback is still a question mark, as Joshua Wilson didn't play all that well, and D'Angelo Hall's hot and cold. And really, for him last year was a really down year because he didn't have any interceptions like he usually does. Didn't have the number of interceptions he usually does. So that's still an area I think of concern as they head into the regular season.
RG3 is going to be unbelievable to watch, though. I mean, he could turn around your franchise just like Cam Newton did with Carolina, and we might even see that with Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. I wanted to ask your opinion of the Peyton Manning situation in Denver. There's really no situation, but I had a conversation the other day with one of our guests, Upton Bell from the Boston area, and I had said to him that Peyton Manning was a great signing by Denver. You need a quality quarterback to lead your franchise, i.e. Tom Brady, Drew Brees. And he got really upset, and he said, Aaron, you're kind of not right because he takes one hit and he's out. And I said, well, this could happen with any player, So do you think what do you think of Peyton Manning's upcoming season and his potential to, perhaps lead Denver to a title?
Well, I mean, he has to be healthy, number one. I don't know if he's necessarily vaulting him to the, head of the Patriots, in the AFC or head of the Ravens. That was a team that, still, people point out, as the season went on, that their wide receivers weren't all that good. They really didn't do a ton to upgrade their position. They didn't bring in Jacob Tammy with Peyton, from Indianapolis, which should help. But, I mean, nobody knows what Peyton Manning's going to do when the season starts. And you're right, you can say that about anybody, but not anybody has 3 or 4 neck surgeries, whatever the number was, and there's some conflicting reports out there over the last, year and a half. So I think there's some risk involved. And to be honest with you, I'm not surprised the Colts picked a quarterback as high as they did, the Broncos picked a quarterback as high as they did because I think they realized it as well. But this was a good way for them to get Tim Tebow out of there. They were never sold on because they know in this league you have to throw the football, and that guy, he doesn't throw the football well. So I don't hate the move from that regard, but they're going to look bad, obviously, if the guy gets hurt early and doesn't play. And if this becomes a thing that is recurring and he doesn't play the first few seasons.
Aaron Krolik here with Israel Sports Radio. My co-host, or he is the leader, Ari Lewis. I want to thank Ari once again for having me on today. With our guest, Scott, I'm looking at the Redskins 2012 upcoming season, and it looks like they start out at New Orleans, and then they go to St. Louis, they're home at Cincinnati, they're at Tampa Bay, home Atlanta, home at Minnesota, at New York, at Pittsburgh, home Carolina, bye, that's November 11th. Then Sunday, November 18th, they're home against Philadelphia, at Dallas, home versus New York, home versus Baltimore, at Cleveland, at Philadelphia, home Dallas. I think that this is a schedule that favors the Redskins, and I would not be surprised if the Redskins were a sleeper team this year. What are your thoughts of that?
Well, you got to see RG3 and this group on the field together. I mean, look, the great thing about the NFL is, right now we're in June, everybody's got hope. I mean, there's hope for everyone. The 49ers were a hot mess last year.
Right.
You would have asked people to pick the team that you thought would be the most effective in the lockout. Everybody said the 49ers because, well, gosh, they got this college coach, they can't do OTAs. How are they going to adjust all this stuff? It's the worst scenario. Well, they're a win away from being in the Super Bowl. Obviously, they fell short to the Giants. Giants were, not an aspiring team in the regular season. Get into the playoffs, obviously make the run Super Bowl champs once again. So, who knows? I mean, all these schedules, every year we do this thing where, this schedule's good, this schedule's bad.
Right.
But then teams that are supposed to stink turn out to be good. Teams that are supposed to be good turn out to stink. So, I mean, who knows? Last year, I thought, everybody thought Carolina was good. You thought it was an easy win. Obviously, that changed. Cincinnati, I don't think anybody thought they would make the playoffs. They did. So, yeah, I mean, the Redskins have a chance. They're getting better, but here's the problem. Philadelphia's getting better. I could have made the argument to you at the end of the season that Philadelphia snuck into the playoffs like the Giants did. They could have made a run because they were playing that well at the end of the year. I mean, you look at the yardage number. I mean, the team moved the ball, no problem, week in and week out. problem was turnovers. Defense got better at the end of the year, so they're going to be good. Obviously, the Giants are world champs. They're going to have to overcome, that whole mental block, I suppose. They're still, a very good franchise with a lot of good players, and then Dallas, they got talent. I mean, Dallas is the biggest riddle to me in the division because year in, year out, you look at them and say, well, they should be better than they are, and they just, for whatever reason, don't get it done.
The Redskins,
because of late season problems.
I believe the Redskins were 2-0 last year against the New York Giants in the regular season.
Yeah, they were, and they were also 0 for the Eagles and 0 for the Cowboys, so you can figure that out.
No, you're right. I mean, anyone can win on any given Sunday in the NFL, and that's why we love to cover it here, and that's why it's like one of my passions. And it's always football season here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Now, of course, you cover the Wizards as well, and the Wizards not in the NBA Finals. Sorry, of course, to disappoint the Washington fans listening. But I want to talk the NBA Finals with you. It's going to be a lot of fun. Beginning tomorrow, Game 1, Heat versus the OKC Thunder. My prediction is Miami in 6. I think the X factor is Battier. I think that at the end of the day, the Heat are going to have just enough to hold off OKC. What are your thoughts? Give us a preview of the NBA Finals.
Well, I think I'm the opposite with you. I like Oklahoma City probably in 6 in that series. I think they're a better all-around team. When you look at all the different guys, they're a 5-man unit when they're on the floor normally. I don't know who covers Westbrook, as you saw with Rondo in the last series. I mean, and this has been a known problem for a while. Miami has a hard time guarding point guards like that. Now, what they do a good job of sometimes is moving weight over to that is zaps him on offense. He's a show himself, and he has not been all that good. He's going to have a big series. I think LeBron's going to be fine. It's what is what he do. Where they get from Bosh. Bosh is going to have to deal with a lot more physical, tougher guys in this series, which is going to be tough. I mean, Perkins can really, he really gives them problems physically. And, of course, Ibaka is the X factor. Ibaka is a great shot blocker, which they have not dealt with in this series. So it's not going to be the layup block for LeBron and what he did normally with his Ibaka in there. But, whistles can change everything. I mean, if this is if Ibaka has foul trouble, that's a problem. Lotion is a real big X factor. Is he defensively took Tony Parker completely out of the last series in those final 4 games? And who does he mark? Does he have the same kind of impact like a guy like Wade? And if you look at the people that fall off the bench, I mean, there's a couple of options. I mean, Harden, Miami has nobody like that can come off and give you instant offense. I mean, Fisher is certainly a one-trick pony at this point, but he still can hit big shots. And, I just like what that they have to offer. You look at the Thunder and, the different ways they can play Miami. And, you just wonder if maybe the moment, they get caught up in the moment, and nobody knows until we see a minute. But I think to this point, this team obviously is pretty unflappable. You're down 2-0 to the Spurs. They come back away. I think they're certainly ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly had a tough road, and to beat a team that hasn't lost in 2 months, to basically take the last 4 games in about a week and some change, that's a good point there. It's going to be a really fun NBA Finals. We don't often see the best player in the NBA versus the second best player, and I'm saying LeBron James and Kevin Durant in that regard, in the NBA Finals that often. From a ratings perspective, what do you expect to see numbers-wise for the NBA Finals?
Well, I mean, it's going to be huge. I mean, I know Oklahoma City's not a big market, but they're still going to have great numbers. People, either you're on the LeBron bandwagon or you're not. I mean, There's no in between. I mean, you ever meet anybody who goes, well, I don't know about LeBron. I guess he's okay. I mean, he has a strong opinion, most classiest thing I've ever seen an athlete do, what he did to Cleveland, or I love the guy, I hope he sticks it to everybody's face. That's what people feel. So you're going to get numbers immediately just by having LeBron. You throw in Durant, who, he's kind of like the Brett Favre in a sense, that he's not in a big market, but he's still a big star. But at the same time, I think he's kind of untapped in terms of marketing. Although he's getting more commercials and stuff here and there, but not as many. But he's also the anti-LeBron in a sense. I mean, here's the guy. He tweets out a day before LeBron's decision show, "Hey, I signed an extension. I'm staying in Oklahoma City." And that was him. It was big rally or anything. That was it. He made his mind up. He was standing there, and that was it. And all the guy does is come back every moment, which is obviously what LeBron had problems with, the late game heroics and all that kind of stuff. But Durant makes the big shots. He wants the big shots. And, I mean, you couldn't draw up a better finals for the NBA. And it's funny because they're coming off this horrendous lockout where they really didn't do a dang thing for the small market teams. You have a small market team in the finals, not by any help of the NBA, just by, just flat a good maneuvering and luck. I mean, they got lucky that Durant was there for them because Odin was the pick by Portland. He falls in their lap. They made a gutsy call, getting Westbrook, taking him as early as they did, and same with Harden. So you're going to give their Presti and that front office a ton of credit for what they've been able to do down there.
Yeah, I mean, the saying is that luck finds those who are working hard at it, and they certainly deserved to be in the NBA Finals with those moves, and it's a good story to see a small market franchise in the NBA Finals. And also, perhaps I'm wrong about this, I feel Kevin Durant is a little bit of the anti-LeBron James for whatever reason. You know, LeBron, this mega superstar who's hanging out with Jay-Z and billionaires and this type of thing, and Kevin Durant's playing flag football with a bunch of college kids. What are your thoughts about Kevin Durant being the anti-LeBron James?
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, he didn't have a TV show to announce that he was staying in Oklahoma City.
Right.
He signed an extension as soon as he could. There was no, well, I'm going to wait and see kind of garbage you've seen with Dwight Howard and Deron Williams or Aaron Williams and obviously what LeBron did. You know, he's been a guy who wanted to be where he started his career. And people like that. This day and age in sport, free agency, look, that's the right. I mean, that's what it's for. It's like anybody else in the other job. You can go out and find the best opportunity for you when your contract's up, and you can do it in contract. I mean, you can't do that in pro sports, They can trade you at any moment, so that's kind of the trade-off for it. But, yeah, I mean, he just goes about his business quietly. He's not a lot of flash. He's just a great player. I mean, and he's just a fun guy to watch, 6'11", who can shoot like that from the outside and put it on the floor. And, this is why the series, the storylines are as great as the matchups.
All right, great analysis there. Let's move on in the final minutes we have with you to the Washington Nationals, fresh off their interleague sweep of the Boston Red Sox. And, prepping for this interview, I'm just shocked at how many injuries the Nationals are going through. You have a couple big names, Jason Worth, the big free agent on that list, Chad Tracy, Carlos Milano, all these players on the injury list, yet the Washington Nationals first place in the National League East. So I know they have some great pitching, but is there something a little extra that maybe is under the eye or under the radar of us fans?
Well, I mean, certainly the pitching, you can't understand. I mean, they're number one in the AL East in ERA. They're second overall in ERA in the National League. I think they're number one in strikeouts, so they were going into the weekend. They were pulling pitching. I mean, you took Strasburg, who's a once-in-a-generational kind of talent. Jordan Zimmerman's a big-time pitcher. He brings Gio Gonzalez in that trade with the A's. Has worked out very well. And your other pitchers, guys like Kevin Jackson, and whether it's Shin Wong or Ross Detweiler as a fifth starter, I mean, that's a nice problem. A lot of teams like to have that problem. They have a really essentially 6 starters and 7 if they got John Lannon, who was the opening day starter 2 years ago, except in a minor league to start the season, kind of a shocking move. They've also been with a closer, Chris Thornton, the entire season, which really, and they had closer issues. Henry Rodriguez has been awful. Brett Lipps got hurt, and he wasn't even that good before that. They really have been closer by committee lately. Clippers kind of taking it over recently. It's come through. I mean, their offense has been maddeningly inconsistent at times, but it's getting better. Everyone's getting healthy. Michael Morris is back. You mentioned they're still missing Worth, obviously. He's going to be out for a while, but overall, they've just been clutch. I mean, they just have something about them, and certainly 19-year-old Bryce Harper has been as good as advertised in anything you want him to do, whether it's a home run, throw somebody out of the plate, draw a walk, steal a base. Kid plays like a kid. I mean, he has a ridiculous energy about him, and enthusiasm, and he's always hustling. He's always going 120 miles an hour. If you're a young kid trying to figure out what you're going to do to be great in baseball, you're just going to watch Bryce Harper highlights all the time.
And last question before we let you go. Nationals call up Brad Lidge from the minors. I'm not sure how much he has left in the tank. We'll see what happens. He is, of course, kind of more at the end of his career, if you will, 36 years old, I believe, or 35, but turned 36 later in the year. How much gas does Brad Lidge have in the tank, and can Brad really be a factor in helping the Nationals stave off the Braves and winning the National League East?
Well, I think he's just another option right now. The bullpen, whether you want to use him as a center back. Well, like I said, he was the closer. Him and Henry Rodriguez was the closers earlier this year. Then Lidge went down. I believe it was an oblique. I'm getting all my Nationals injuries confused. Went on the DL, which made sense because he didn't look like Brad Lidge. At times, he was, he had a few good outings and some bad outings. But hopefully, he's healthy. And who knows? If he's healthy, it's another guy to throw out there. When Clifford maybe is spent, Clifford's really good in that position, but he's more of the setup guy for the Nationals. And again, eventually Drew Store's going to he's your closer. He's going to get invested in, and hopefully he comes back well when he does come back here. I believe they're talking about the right around All-Star break or after the All-Star break for Drew Store, and then be close to full strength. And again, they've done a great job managing injuries. No excuses about the Nats. They just keep winning.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep rolling along no matter what is thrown, whether quote-unquote, no pun intended, curveballs coming their way. The Nationals just figure out a way to get it done. First place in the National League, as I mentioned, just ahead of the Braves. And it's going to be fun. Bruce Jacobs, a good friend of Israel Sports Radio, picked the Nationals at the beginning of the year to win the East. I thought that was a little extreme, but I did have them taking a wild card spot. And at this point, it looks like they're going to get in the playoffs. Of course, long way to go. The Major League Baseball season is certainly a marathon, to say the least. Well, Scott, we certainly appreciate your time here on Lewis Live at Israel Sports Radio. It was a lot of fun, and we'd love to do it again with you in the future.
Scott, thank you.
All right, guys, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Scott, be well. All right, that was Scott Jackson from ESPN 980, breaking down the NBA Finals, the Nationals, and the Redskins. And we'll see what happens, how RG3 is really going to turn on the franchise. I loved your Cam Newton comparison. People weren't sure Cam Newton was going to make it as a pro quarterback, came off the Heisman and the college championship, and turned around the Carolina Panthers. I mean, they didn't go to the playoffs, obviously, but from 1-15 to being a relevant team, viable team, and we'll see if the same thing happens with RG3. Of course, time's going to tell in that regard.
Let's see if Mike Shanahan doesn't screw it up.
Yeah, right? That's one way to say it for sure. We'll see if Mike can keep everything in check and use RG3 to the best of his abilities. There's certainly a talent. A lot of people think RG3 is actually
a freak.
Yeah, physically better than Andrew Luck. Has a better physical body. Maybe not the typical quarterback Andrew Luck is going to be. Of course, time will tell. All right, we're going to take a break. On the other side, the play-by-play voice for the Los Angeles Galaxy. That's right, for all you fans, David Beckham, that's right, that's the team who plays for the LA Galaxy. So we'll catch up with Joe Tutino. You're listening to Lewis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
The Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Lewis Live, a special bonus segment for you folks out there. Thanks to Scott Jackson, talk show host at ESPN 980, giving us a breakdown of the Washington world of sports. We're now going to call, this is a very special guest. I am not the biggest soccer fan. I'm not going to lie or be fake or be dishonest about that, but even I would have to agree this is a pretty good treat right here. We're going to have the play-by-play man for the LA Galaxy, and for Americans who don't follow soccer, even they know who the LA Galaxy are because of David Beckham. That is just a simple reality. I'm sure people are sick of hearing David Beckham, but we just have to talk about it because he is just an icon in that world and the soccer world, and it is catching on. You know, soccer in the United States is catching on. It is the most popular sport in the world. I would say maybe 6th, 7th in the United States, but certainly growing. The U.S.'s improvement in the World Cup, a big part of that. Hi, am I speaking with Joe?
This is Joe.
Hi, you're live on Lewis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How you doing out there?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing great. It's a pleasure to have on now the play-by-play voice for the Los Angeles Galaxy. And I know you are bombarded with David Beckham questions, but I just wouldn't be doing my job to not ask about David Beckham. Before we get into all the celebrity of David Beckham, there was speculation that he was not going to sign, or people weren't sure what could happen. January, he signed the 2-year deal with the Galaxy. What were some of the concerns of why David wasn't going to come back to the LA Galaxy?
Well, I think it was just the fact that he got an open butt there. All of a sudden, he had a lot of value to him. Parents made a big-time offer for him, and I don't think the Galaxy were in that position to spend that money, but luckily his boys have grown up in Southern California, and basically go along there. They'd rather live in Southern California right now than in Paris.
Now,
so that's all there's anything to do about it.
Okay, all right. So kind of a simple to the point reason there. And, you know, for fans like myself who are not necessarily follow soccer as maybe as we should, we know who David Beckham is. You know, I've been just told he is Michael Jordan and Babe Ruth combined somewhat. I've always wanted to know why, because some people explain to me he is back in Europe, wasn't always the best player on his own team. What is it? Is it the looks, how he speaks? You know, Michael Jordan kind of had a little everything. He spoke like a politician, movie star looks, and played the game, obviously at a high level. What is the secret and reasoning behind David Beckham's celebrity?
I think, for one, he's always among the top players in his league. First of all, he has something that most players around the world don't, which is the ability for service. And his is still, I think, if I would be happy to put him at the top of England at this point, at his age, as far as his play is concerned. But I think off the field, he's done a great job. The people that he has around him have done a great job of marketing him very well. Obviously, he has something that many women love, which is his looks. And I think when you combine all of that together, you create this superpower, and I think that's what David Beckham is. And yeah, you talk about Michael Jordan, but I think it's fair to say that David's brand is even bigger than Michael.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. For whatever reason, like you mentioned, the looks, or maybe it's the Spice Girl thing. I mean, who knows at this point? But yeah, he is certainly globally bigger than Michael Jordan. What is he like personally? Is he a nice guy? Does he treat folks like you well? Does he treat the fans well, sign autographs, that type of thing? What's he like on a personal level?
I think David is great. I think David understands the type of star that he is, and he goes out of his way to try to be a normal person as much as possible. I had recently had a chance to sit down with him for a few minutes, and he just, he's a regular, down-to-earth type of guy, and ultimately he's pretty shy about his stature of where he is. And I think he tries as much as possible to be a regular person, and he tries to acknowledge as many people as possible because he understands that the person that you don't acknowledge suddenly has a bad impression of him. And I think he does a very good job of that. I think that's one of the main reasons why he continues to be one of the most sought-after stars in sports.
In preparation for this interview, I did a little research on David Beckham, and apparently he kind of has a certain obsession, certain OCD with the amount of soda cans in his refrigerator. I think he needs to have 4 at all times, something like that, so he has a little bit of a quirk. Is that true?
I know that.
Okay. I find that kind of interesting, but I guess everyone has their own things that they're obsessed with, and it's kind of good to know that a guy even on that stature level has something a little wrong with it, just like all the rest of us. He's not perfect at the end of the day, even though I know that there are people that have built an actual statue of him and worship him. I mean, there's all types of cult things about that. So, but it's good to know he's kind of a regular guy, as you mentioned there. So you didn't know anything about the soda cans in the refrigerator?
I did not know that, but he is a soccer player, and a lot of soccer players are superstitious in some way.
Okay.
I mean, if he was a goalkeeper, it'd really be freaky.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, more of a general question just about soccer in the United States. It wasn't too long ago that soccer just simply wasn't on the map in the radar of the fan of the United States, the North American fan. It is, of course, obviously in the entire world, especially here in Israel. It's the number one sport. It seems like it's growing more and more and more, partly because of the U.S. success in the World Cup. Are there other factors? Just kids playing it more on TV? Again, David Beckham, all these things. What do you think is really contributing to more exposure and popularity of soccer in the United States?
Well, from the youth level, it's been a monster in this country for years. Even when I was a kid, it was the number one played sport among the youth. I think it got lost somewhere around high school when you have the other American sports that have had more tradition: football, American football, basketball, baseball, even wrestling had more tradition in this country than soccer did at that age group. And as you grow up, as the generations turn, now you have many more people, like, for example, my age or your age, that have played the sport in this country at younger ages and have grown with it. That and the fact that you have more availability, the European leagues being shown here in the United States on a live basis, that has grown the culture here in this country as well. And the fact that Philip Anschutz and the other owners of Major League Soccer have basically said, hey, listen, we're going to stick with this plan, and we're going to build this sport. And the great thing about AEG, which owns the Galaxy, is that they've been on the cutting edge of saying, hey, we're going to bring the best possible players into this country because we believe that we have a fan base now that will pay the price to come watch these players play. And I think it's proven well in the Los Angeles area as well as New York now with Thierry Henry and other players coming on in, that once you bring quality players into this country, that the fans are still here. Remember, the United States is a country built of immigrants. Most of the fans know something about soccer. It's a matter of now feeding that hunger and actually, winning over their credibility.
Now, the LA Galaxy in themselves, they were not too long ago, 2011, they were the third straight team to win consecutive Shields, and they had the second best total of points in MLS history. So is there starting to get a kind of a tradition, or I guess there has been for a few years now, that there's a certain LA Galaxy pride of you're on the Galaxy, right, and it's just a successful team, and you got to go out there and play like a champion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Shield itself means something now for the LA Galaxy. I think right now there's a kind of something out of the gate, and hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, in fact, hopefully this weekend they get back on track and start getting themselves up the table. But yeah, I agree with you. Over the last 3 years, they have rebuilt that aura, so to speak, or that equity that you put into that shield, the LA Galaxy shield. They had it going in the early part of the Major League Soccer, and then basically in 2006, 7, and 8. Those are called the dark years of the Galaxy.
Right.
The team not the full season. But then with Bruce Arena coming into the fold as the manager of the club, and he got everybody on the same page, and the team came together and really did very well and got to the top of Major League Soccer. And yeah, last year was a phenomenal year, especially for the fact that they were able to win the championship in front of their home crowd. And hopefully this year they can right the ship and get themselves back in the postseason. And they're already back in Champions League play here in this region. And hopefully they can bring some more silverware back to Southern California.
Yeah, absolutely, for all the LA Galaxy fans out there. Now, I want to ask you from now a broadcasting perspective, because I do broadcast it here in Israel for the local football league. That is certainly not a comparison to what you do, obviously, with the LA Galaxy. But I'm always curious, broadcaster, how do you soccer is a game not like football where there's not a lot of points scored or goals in the situation. How do you how do you feel the time where it's exciting and fun for the fans to listen to the broadcast?
Well, I think, from a broadcaster standpoint, I think a lot of young broadcasters make a mistake describing just where the ball is on the field. And I think soccer is more than just where the ball is. Soccer is where the ball is. It's also where the players are, as far as your teammates are, and what the other team is doing. And I think if you are able to eloquently present that, then you paint the picture. And a 0-0 game can become rather exciting.
Now, I agree. I'm more of a defensive guy in all sports. I like the pitchers doing baseball. I like the 10-7 game in the NFL. I like Eastern Conference type of basketball. So I actually think that stuff is fun because one goal can make the difference, and it makes it much more precious as well. Now, as a broadcaster, you mentioned that David Beckham, very nice guy in real life. Do you find that most of the players are happy and friendly towards you, kind of because you're talking about them, if they're not playing well, you have to talk about it, or if they're not playing well in the game particularly. Do you find that most of these players are fair towards you, they understand that you're doing your job, and overall they like your contribution to the LA Galaxy?
Yeah, well, luckily it's my 16th year, so maybe I've been doing something correct with it. But I think it's important as a broadcaster to be fair in how you present the game. And I think one of the things that's always been in the back of my mind is if you say X player made a bad play at the point of the game, if that player makes a good play later on, I think it's very important that you recognize that as well.
Right.
And you present balance. The other thing I think is important is that you make yourself available to those players outside the game. On the road, I make a point of myself being available to them at the team hotel, and if anybody has an issue or anything like that, they can, they're more than welcome to talk to me about it. And so I think in that regard, it's a matter of respect, and I respect their domain, and of course, they understand that I have a job to do. And ultimately, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a fan of the Galaxy.
Right.
That's the podcast. The team broadcasters, in my opinion, happen to be fans of the team. My job is to kind of control that fandom a bit and be as objective as possible at the same time.
Now, before we let you go, a couple questions with you. Let's talk about, we mentioned David Beckham obviously on and on as we just kind of have to when it comes to the LA Galaxy. But last year, you guys added Robbie Keane, and he is just a legend in Ireland. And he's not even. Well, I guess for soccer age, maybe he's a little bit up there in age, but he's a legend at this point. How has Robbie Keane come over and kind of dealt? This is David Beckham's spotlight, but Robbie Keane is, a legend. We've seen this in American sports time to time. Guy comes in to a team that has an established leader or maybe more a popular guy, this type of thing. How does Robbie Keane fit in with the LA Galaxy?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Major League Soccer, it might create a problem because I think we were still growing to understand what it meant to have superstars on a team, multiple superstars. I think players like Robbie Keane and David Beckham have been around stars on their own teams elsewhere. And so for them, I think it's just a matter of an understanding of, hey, listen, we're all here to win, we're all here to do our job and to be professionals. And he fit right in well. I mean, there wasn't a situation where Robbie Keane was worried about not getting enough quotes in the newspaper or on all media outlets, and I don't think that's an issue with David Beckham, nor is it an issue with Landon Donovan. These guys understand what the situation is. They played at the very highest of levels, landed at the World Cup, and had success at the World Cup as well. And I think the only thing they're doing is a positive for American soccer is bringing in that understanding and bringing everybody else with them, the younger players with them, the American players that are playing here in the United States with them, to, again, elevate the game here in this country. So I think Robbie is fitting very well, and he's a pistol. I like watching him, and I like the way he plays.
All right, and last question before we let you go. I'm curious because the LA Galaxy played not too long ago in the Rose Bowl, but now in the Home Depot Center. Have you noticed a bit of a difference? Fans, do they like the Home Depot Center more than the Rose Bowl? Rose Bowl's obviously got such history and tradition behind it. So what are your thoughts about the change made about 10 years ago in 2003?
Well, I think if you talk to the fans from 1996 and 97, the early years, they like the old-fashioned way of being able to get really close to the players, being able to do their own tailgating, and so forth. But when you put it all together and going into the Home Depot Center, a state-of-the-art stadium that fits 27,000 people, that's always full, the atmosphere is right on the game. The Rose Bowl obviously has its history, but even the closest seats is still good 20 yards away from the pitch, and that makes a big difference. And I think the Home Depot Center, head and shoulders, is much better than the Rose Bowl at this point for the sport in this country. And I would say also going forward, if we ever get to a point where we can fit into a 60,000, 70,000 seat stadium, I would think that would be state of the art and also a better sight line and better atmosphere than the Rose Bowl can provide. Yeah, it's a great old stadium, and yes, there's been World Cups and Olympic finals playing there, and it has its history. But I think for the sport in this country going forward, it's nice that it's in its history books at this point.
Yeah, I think it's one of those times where it's kind of out with the old, in with the new, despite the history and tradition of the Rose Bowl. If it's a better atmosphere and a better viewing for the fan, and you can enjoy the game more, then I think that's what you got to go with. Joe, we certainly appreciate your time here on Lewis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Lots of luck to the Los Angeles Galaxy, and we'd love to have you on again in the future.
Thank you very much for having me. Call me anytime.
Thank you, Joe. We really appreciate it. Be well out there.
Thank you.
All right, that was Joe Tutino, who is the play-by-play man for the LA Galaxy. That was actually a lot of fun. Appreciate Joe's time. We're going to conclude tonight's program. We want to thank Aaron for coming in. Did you have a good time, Aaron?
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I always have fun talking sports with you and Israel Sports Radio. And, of course, you can't pick a better place than Jerusalem, Israel, to broadcast sports.
Yeah, if you don't like talking sports, something wrong, I got to say. A lot of great stuff to talk about tomorrow. Of course, Game 1 of the NBA Finals will be tomorrow, and the NHL Finals in a real heated battle between the New Jersey Devils and the Los Angeles Kings. As I mentioned, Kings look like on the verge of a sweep. Now it looks like it's going in Jersey's favor. Marty Brodeur could be the Conn Smythe winner when it's all said and done. Who would have thought that would have happened? What a swan song, if it is, for Marty as he is 40 years old, and this will probably be his last season in the NHL. Legendary goalie could go out with a championship and a Conn Smythe. We want to thank everyone who was on the program tonight. Bryn Jonathan Butler, the director of Split Decision, the story of Guillermo Rigondo, Cuban defector who became champion at 123 in the world of boxing, was on the undercard of Manny Pacquiao's stunning loss to Timothy Bradley. ESPN's Mark Brown, who likes the Miami Heat, but in 7 games, which is an interesting pick because Game 7, if it goes that far, would be in OKC. I like Miami in 6. I think they have to win in 6. I don't think they can win it on the road in Game 7. Author Dave Cohen, who wrote Matzo Balls and Baseballs, talking about all the great Jewish players in the history of baseball. ESPN's 980 Scott Jackson, breaking down the Washington Nationals, how they just keep rolling along despite all their injuries. And, of course, the LA Galaxy's play-by-play man, Joe Tutino. Stay tuned tomorrow at 5 p.m. as we'll have a lot more great guests and more fun sports talk. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.